weird because it was really shot for television.
Right,
So
right.
I think if you were shooting it for a big screen, you'd shoot it very
Differently. Yeah. How many cameras did you use?
9.
9. Wow, that's
9
that's
of which
significant.
3 were useless. But, yeah.
Well, you alluded to a question I was going to ask you about the whole sort of trend to capture live performances. You know, are you ambiguous about that, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
being a live stage guy.
It's never the same, but it's better than nothing, I guess. And there are a lot of people who don't get a chance to see these shows, so I think actually it'll probably in some ways work better on TV, although it's really nice to be with an audience and watch it. So, you know, I'm all for it. I mean, what do you got to lose?
That's right. Get the word out and spread the word.
I mean, it's never the same, but
Right.
it's still nice to have a record of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was curious. You know, you mentioned earlier in your introduction, you know, how the Falsettos came about. I mean, there was one play, March of the Falsettos, and then the second play was Falsettos Land, and then they were combined into Falsettos, which you won the Tony for, I believe, right? I believe that was one of your 3 Tonys. Into the Woods was the other. I didn't mention that earlier, but multi-talented. In 90...
I think it's interesting to see how we as writers changed over 10 years from the first act to the second act.
Yeah.
You know, there's a kind of bizarre, I should have told everybody it was sung through, because it's unusual to have a sung through contemporary musical like that, and it's hard to do. But I think it's kind of fun to look at it and see how we learned a lot over 10 years.
Right. But I would imagine that when this came out in 91, the fact that, you know, the country, our country, especially the gay community, was dealing with the ravaging of AIDS, that this must have been a great impact. I mean, this is 2 years before Philadelphia, the movie that won the Academy for Tom Hanks. So you were like an
It was
early...
very cathartic for people to come see the show, and almost very moving too, because people would kind of lose it. And I remember the first time I couldn't understand what I was hearing. It sounded like somebody was in cardiac arrest or something, and I realized that they were just, you know, And I think what's kind of encouraging about bringing it back is that we didn't know that there would be an audience for it. It's worth people remembering that time.
Right.
Particularly in New York City, and particularly in the theater.
Are you getting younger people to come see this? People who maybe weren't alive in 91?
Very much so, surprisingly,
Fantastic.
It's funny how quickly we forget how that hung over our head, particularly in New York City, and how it touched so many lives. And it doesn't take long, it takes a generation.
Right.
Kind of didn't realize what we went through.
Right. You mentioned in an article that I think you sent me the Playbill article, but you mentioned that theater is like child's play. Do you remember saying that?
No, but it sounds like something I would say.
Okay.
I think it is. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what did you mean by that? You know.
Well, it's funny watching it, because that's why I had this image of kids building blocks, you know, and I always wanted to do a set that was sort of a set of building blocks that become the whole set. And I'm always really touched when that chair comes out, because you realize you haven't seen a real piece of furniture until reality sets in. And that was sort of the idea behind the design of the production, that we live in a kind of bubble sometimes, but reality comes in and you have to grow up.
Right.
And it's not child's play anymore.
Oh yeah, that's a great metaphor. And it goes back to, I can kind of put out the secret that, maybe it's not a secret, that you started as a graphic designer, artist. And so...
Thanks to Robert Brustein here. Thank you. Yes, who brought me into the theater.
Oh, wow.
Forever grateful.
So, so that's somewhat had an influence on the building of this set, obviously.
Yeah. It's funny because the set designer kept wanting to, and those are built blocks from parks, you know, that kind of tough foam.
Right.
Yeah. But I just wanted to be as minimal as possible too. I guess maybe just because selfishly I thought as a director, how little can I do this with?
Right.
You know? So it was kind of interesting to play that way.
Fantastic. Well, Well, let's take a few questions from the audience.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're a great audience, and so still, you were, I had to get up and go to the bathroom. I mean, I'll own it. So, you guys were great.
Yeah, right here, Robert. Yes, another man from the theater.
Yeah.
Would you like a mic?
Maybe easy for other people here.
I remember when the show first came out and saw it in New York. One thing really stood out to me, and that was something that Frank Rich wrote in the New York Times when I guess was it Dan Quayle was the president, whoever the vice president was, something like that. The talk of family
I'm
values.
talking about Dan Quayle here. Yeah. Whoever remembers that name. Spell potato. Yeah.
But the discussion had come about that some people were offended by the show because it didn't reflect family values. And Frank Rich wrote this article in the New York Times that said, this is the most family value show on Broadway.
That was around the Murphy Brown thing.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
Right.
And he says, he took a look at all the other shows. Oklahoma was playing and Guys and Dolls was playing. And he says, but this show was more about family than any of those other shows were. What do you see was how it resonated within the theater, besides just the story of 8, but how the show itself sort of stands as a milestone? Is that?
Oh, I don't know. He wants to know. I don't know, actually. I just am grateful for it, but, you never know what's going to resonate with people and what doesn't. You don't set out to write a show because you think it's going to do X, Y, or Z. You just write what's going on in your life, what interests you in life. And I remember Steve Sondheim said to me once, of all people, I think every show I write is going to be a big success. And I said, really? And I said, why? And he said, because it's so interesting to me. I think it'll be interesting to everyone else, which of course it often isn't. But yeah, we didn't set out to make any... We just set out to kind of reflect what was going on in our heads at the time, and for the first one. And the first one was pretty audacious, doing a gay theme like that. And I remember Bill pushing me to make it more sexy, and I said, Bill, I think, people will be leaving in droves if you have these guys kiss, which is all he kept saying was kiss. But by the time we got further along, and I think it's so interesting to see it now when gay marriage and the families are redefined now, so... And also we have a president who's, not helping the cause. Here we are again, so there you go.
Yeah, up there.
Steve.
Hi, James. Just a question about the translation from stage to screen. When you set up the stage pictures, how much of that is enhanced or lost in the translation?
Watching it made me crazy, because I've directed a couple of these myself, but I didn't direct this one. If you notice, the camera just never stops moving. It made me nuts. It's very much television direction, where they don't know the show, they're coming in, it's put together rather quickly, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the shots were the shots I would have liked at the time, but I guess I don't have anything to blame but myself. But I don't think, it is what it is. I don't know that if it were any more polished, maybe it's better, it's funky a little bit at times. I think you forget about it, right? After a while, you just kind of go with it, and I don't know. You tell me.
Yes.
Well, I think one of the things that is special about seeing it on the screen is the actors the performers are so incredible, and when you see the close-ups, you realize just how amazing they are.
Imagine them doing that 8 times a week.
No.
You know how hard it is to sing that score?
No.
And to have a sung through musical, it's impossible. And they were incredible, and they loved each other, which was so interesting. And the guy who plays Marvin is like the biggest ladies' man you ever met. And, but he loved Andrew. it was crazy how they threw themselves into it, all those actors, including the little boy. They were a family, and they were very devoted, and I think it comes through in the
I don't think you
performance.
always get that in musicals. I mean, because there isn't that sort of intimacy or kind of close-ups in terms of...
Yeah, usually they're all singing to the audience all the time in musicals, yeah. So, it's a little different.
I think like with the NT Life in London, you get that sense of closeness.
Uh-huh.
Because of all the cameras, sort of behind the scenes and above angles.
Oh, I
that
see.
You never see if you're sitting in the theater. Your view is just one direction.
Right, yeah.
How did your direction, the rewrite, the revival compare to the original?
It's interesting, the original, believe it or not, that first act you saw was written in about 4 weeks. We went into rehearsal. It was a whole different era in the theater where you actually could do something like that. And so I didn't have a set designed. I just had sort of a floor, and I had a set designer who I'd say, oh, go get me we had everything on wheels. I said, well, just go down the basement and get me a table, go get me a bed, go get me a this, go get me a that, just put wheels on it. So everything was very fluid in a different way, but the actors did create the same picture, stage picture like they do here, but just different materials. So I wouldn't say it was radically different. You know, it started in like a 90-seat theater, so it was very minimal and funky and intimate. It's kind of great. You know. All right.
I'd just like to say that little boy's performance is one of the finest.
Isn't he amazing, that little boy? You know, it's really hard when you audition children, try and find it, and he's just, he's like something
absolute
special.
natural, yes.
And he would just blow the actors away. He would just make choices that were out of the blue. I mean, he was so in the moment. It was, I don't know, you're right, he's really special.
And the second thing is we have remarked on the really remarkable, unexpected rhymes and rhythms that.
Bill is totally unique. Yeah, I mean, some people don't like that, but I love that about it. It's not show-tuney as much.
I'm talking about the lyrics.
Yeah, the lyrics are.
Yeah.
I mean, who puts schmaltz in a lyric? You know, I mean, waltz and schmaltz. You know. Oh, anyway, thanks. Well, the psychiatrist doesn't have a question in the audience. No.
One last question.
Oh, I think they're up.
Yeah, no, I'm a psychiatrist in the audience, but I actually just wanted you to elaborate on the point about writing the second being different than writing the first. And they did sound actually very different to me.
What's amazing is there are only 4 instruments in the show, which is pathetic because when we started, the first one had something like 8 or 9, but economics being what they are, they shrunk. Oh, I don't know. I think it just feels more assured kind of writing. And, you know, it's hard to tell a story and change the tone when you're singing all the time. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we were fresher and better in the first act. What do I know? But I don't know. It's a little more polished, I think, the second act. Also, we knew the characters. And we knew where we were going. It's a little wobbly at the beginning, but I think it kind of... Once the darkness comes in, I think it's really, you feel that, oh, this is really what the show's about. Yeah, pulls it together in an interesting way. I always wanted to write like another one, like what would they be like today? You know, those people. And Bill, when I talked about it, and he wanted to do Jason's wedding day, and they had a whole thing about, you know, Marvin still being alone. You know, but it just, we couldn't really kind of get it elaborated enough to work, so never wrote it. So maybe it's good.
But you are still working with Bill.
Bill and I, yeah, we work together. We did a show called Spelling Bee, which was a lot of fun, and we have a fan in the audience of Spelling Bee, and yeah. Anyway, we're great friends. Thank you so much. Thank you.